Maryland basketball will have to be much better to beat the Florida Gators.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And I'm also doing work at Inside Black and Gold, so make sure you guys head over to InsideBlackandGold.net for all your latest Terps news. And today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in the episode. Maryland basketball has to be much better to take down the Florida Gators. We've seen a really solid tournament so far from Maryland basketball. Probably one of the more exciting tournament teams that we've seen. And right now, Maryland basketball is kind of the talk of the town. It's even on kind of a national media level. I'm turning on ESPN and all these different shows that's usually mainly about main sports stories it'll be about the NFL and huge stories in the NBA and those different things. They're not usually touching too much on college basketball. But right now, obviously, it's March Madness. There's not a whole lot else going on besides the NBA regular season. And Maryland basketball has been on the front of a lot of media and everything like that, which has been really cool to see. But it's been a really exciting tournament so far for Maryland basketball. I thought we played a really good first game against Grand Canyon, and then we had the most exciting game. I don't even know if you could argue it. I think the most exciting game so far in the tournament against Colorado State, and I'm just so glad that we were on the right side of things with the Queen buzzer beater. There's a lot of different things going on. Did he travel? That's kind of what a lot of the media is talking about. I've heard that conversation a lot. Before we talk about it more, I do kind of want to talk about, was it a travel? Was it not? And honestly, I don't know. I don't know. It does kind of look like he takes 3 steps when you just watch the video, but I'm also a little bit unclear of the rule. I guess in college there's no gather step. It's a little confusing. But I seen Queen do this interesting footwork all year where it's is he getting away with steps or is his footwork just that good? I lean towards the second one because he's been doing that kind of stuff all year where looks like he sneaks in a third step. Whatever the case is, to me, it doesn't really matter, though. The refs weren't going to call that in game. And if they called that in game, I think Kevin Willard would have brought down the building with how mad he would have been if they called a travel in game. You're not going to call travel in that moment unless it's blatantly obvious that it's a travel. And in that situation, in real time, there's no way you see that. So I want to start there. The Derek Queen travel thing, yeah, technically, probably, maybe, possibly it was a travel, but I don't care anymore. I'm not going to let that negate the moment. I'm not going to let that lower how cool of a moment that was for Maryland basketball because we think possibly Queen traveled a little bit or he added in an extra step. That was still an insane shot, like the Colorado State coach said. Still a really tough shot to hit. In a really exciting moment for Derek Queen and the whole Maryland team. But I'm going to go ahead and say this. Maryland basketball will have to be much better, and maybe play their best game of the year to beat the Florida Gators. Florida is hot right now. Florida's playing probably the best basketball of any team in the country right now. They're just on another level in terms of how they play, how hard they play, in terms of their shooting ability. They're probably the best player in the country, arguably right now. But Florida basketball, it feels like they're kind of the team to beat right now in the tournament. Obviously, you could also say a team like Duke, a team like Auburn, but I say those 3 teams right now are really the cream of the crop, the teams to beat, and probably the best 3 teams in the tournament. But we've seen Florida so far. We saw Florida obviously have a really easy first game, but the UConn game, man, that was tight, close game, back and forth. Really interesting the entire game. I thought UConn was going to win it, and I thought we were going to have a chance to take down the defending champs, but Florida found a way to get it going. And I just think this. I thought Maryland had an interesting game against Colorado State because, like I said on the last episode, if you look at the box score and really look at it, it's kind of like, did Maryland really play that bad? How did they only win this game by 1 point? We nearly outshot them by like 21%, I think it was, from the 3-point arc. We didn't turn over the ball. It's like there was a lot of different things where I was like, this is weird that this game was close. And sometimes you're going to have games like that where you can't quite put your finger on why it was close, why this happened, why that. But all I know is this. Colorado State does not compare to the Florida team. Florida is miles better than Colorado State. They just are. They're deeper. They're more complete. They have more star power. They're more athletic. They're technically they're probably better than us right now, I would say. In the way Maryland played against Colorado State, not that it was terrible, like we got the win, but you're just going to have to be so much better. Specifically, I thought we shot pretty well from 3. I mean, 41%, but we got to be a lot better in 2-point areas. We're going to have to shoot the ball much better from 2-point spots against Florida if we want to have a shot to win this game. But Florida, like I said, they're playing some of the best basketball you'll see a team play. And so it's not even close. Maryland's going to have to be so much better against Florida. And when I think about Colorado State, their best player was this Clifford guy. And I think Clifford is good. He might be an NBA player and all those different things. But at the end of the day, Maryland basketball has arguably is playing the best team, the best player in the country in this Walter Clayton kid. He looks like potentially the best player in college basketball right now. Walter Clayton Jr. When I watch him, I'm like, am I watching Steph Curry? Am I watching Walter Clayton? I don't know, because this kid right now is playing at an all-time high level. In Colorado State didn't have a guy like that. That could shoot the ball like that at the guard spot, that could score on his own like that, that if you leave him open, if you give him any inch, he's going to hit the shot. I'm telling you, what he's been doing feels Steph Curry-ish for Florida basketball. And the way he kind of plays, it kind of reminds me of it. I don't know if other people are seeing that, but that's kind of how I see it. And to me right now, you're going to have to play a lot better. I thought Maryland defensively wasn't awesome against Colorado State. I thought it was okay. I thought we could have been better. But I just think that when we look at how Walter Clayton and the Florida team shoots the ball and how some of their guards shoot the ball from the 3-point arc, you're going to have to be a lot better against Florida to be able to take them down. Walter Clayton in his last game, 36 minutes, 5 of 8 from the 3-point line, 23 points. He's a guy that if we let go off, he potentially could kill us. He also had 5 turnovers, though, against UConn. So you can get this guy a little unraveled. Obviously, he's probably going to get his. You might be in a pretty good spot. But even the line on FanDuel represents that Maryland's going to have to play a much better game to win the game. We were 7.5-point favorites against Colorado State. That flips itself upside down, basically. We're 6.5 dogs against Florida. And right there, that shows that if you play a similar game against Colorado State, you'll probably end up losing by a good 10 points. That's just like what the line represents and what everything shows right now. But they're just the best team. They're playing like the best team in the country. There's not a ton to have to sugarcoat this. They're playing like elite basketball right now. And you're just going to have to be on your A game with how Florida's shooting the ball, with how they're rebounding it. They have a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things. On the year, they're 35% from the 3-point arc. They just do a lot of things well. And so I just think Maryland's got to play their best basketball to be able to win this, and they have to play better than they did against Colorado State. But let me add on a point. I don't want anybody to think that Maryland winning this game would be insane. It's not some crazy upset. It's not some crazy thing that shouldn't happen. I think Maryland compares to Florida talent-wise. I think Florida does a couple things a little bit better than us, and I would definitely give them a bit of the edge. But I don't want to make this seem like it's some huge upset or this is some impossible game and Maryland's going to have to play an insane game to beat these Florida Gators. Like, no, I don't think that's the case. I think Florida's good, but I don't think they're that good in terms of they're not like an NBA team. And that's more of me respecting Maryland and not giving less credit to Florida. Obviously, like I said, they're one of the best teams in the country, but I think Maryland's up there as well and can compete with anybody. And so to me, Maryland's going to have to play their best game potentially of the year, but you could say the same thing about Florida. If Florida doesn't have a great game, Maryland's going to beat them. If Florida plays mediocre, it's going to be really tough for them to overcome this Maryland team. And so I do think Maryland has to play much better than they did against Colorado State, because beating Colorado State by 1 point isn't going to cut it. That type of performance isn't going to cut it against Florida. But I also want to make sure you guys know that Florida's got to play a good game too to beat this Maryland team. This isn't some slide away game for Florida where they just are able to get things done and figure it out. Like, that's not what this is. UConn showed some weaknesses against Florida, and UConn probably should have won that game. And so I think Maryland should take some of that. But I do think Maryland's going to have the chance to win this game. I'm just hoping we come out with a good game plan, but I trust Kevin Willard, man, right now. Let's talk about some of the performances against Colorado State and Grand Canyon. Who has to step up? Who has to play better? Who's playing well right now? We'll talk about that next. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan, the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College Basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push them forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week is the Arkansas Razorbacks. Despite losing their first 5 SEC games, Coach Cal's Hogs fought their way through the most rugged conference in college basketball to not only make the NCAA tournament, but knock off back-to-back national championship and Hall of Fame coaches en route to the Sweet 16. They can accomplish all this without the second leading scorer, Boogie Flan, for most of SEC play, and without leading scorer and rebounder, Thiaro, so far in the NCAA tournament. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Arkansas Razorbacks have done. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can with the all-new Nissan Armada or any Nissan outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. So let's review the tournament a little bit and talk about who really needs to play better, who I think is playing well right now. I think I want to start off with the guys that I really like how they're playing right now. I thought Selton Miguel. We'll start with Selton Miguel. I thought Selton Miguel was a huge reason why we beat Colorado State. I still want him to work on his shot selection. I thought there were some threes where he settled, but he also went 3 of 5 from the three-point arc, so you can't really tell him that he's got to not take any shots, because if you go 60%, we got to live with whatever shot you're taking. I thought against Colorado State, he was maybe the reason we won. There was a couple threes he hit during the course of the game. All of them were much needed and in really big spots. And he had 11 against Colorado State. I think he's a huge reason why we have a good chance to beat Florida. And if we're going to beat them, a lot of it's going to come down to how Selton Miguel plays, how he shoots the ball. Obviously, Derek Queen, Julian Reese, I think they're playing at an excellent, phenomenal level. I think Florida's strength is more their guards. They obviously have good forwards with the Alex Condone kid, and they have the Thomas kid as well. But I think where their strength lies is their guards, which is kind of the opposite of Maryland. Not really. Maryland obviously has really good guards as well. But I think our strength is the front court. So I think Derek Queen and Julian Reese could have big days inside against Florida. And they obviously are playing really well. You got to shout out Julian Reese. And I talked about this last episode, but the fact that Julian Reese made those 2 free throws down the stretch was really high end and really big to go up by 2 points, because if he misses one of those, then all of a sudden Maryland has to still fight its way, even with a Derek Queen buzzer, has to win an OT. If he misses both, then the 3 basically makes it really tough for Maryland, because then Maryland has to make a 3 to be able to tie it. at the end of the game instead of a Derek Queen 2 to win it. So Julian Reese, you got to shout him out. I think he's been playing at a really high level. I think Gillespie and Rodney Rice shot the ball fine from the three-point arc, but they got to be better from the field and the two-point areas if we're going to beat Florida. They can't do a similar performance to how they did. And then Deshaun Harris-Smith has had an interesting tournament. Against Grand Canyon, I thought he had one of his better games of the year, probably his best game of the year with 11 points, made a three, look confident, didn't do too much against Colorado State. And then Jordan Geronimo played 10 minutes, gave us 2 points, 1 block. We might need a little more from him against Florida. We might need a big play from Geronimo or Young or Deshaun against Florida. I think this is what's going to happen realistically is we've been playing a good amount of our I feel like in game, I feel like a good amount of our bench is playing. When I look at the minutes, it kind of tells another story, but it could tighten up even more. Like in the Sweet 16, you might, as long as we stay out of foul trouble, which is going to be super important against Florida, you could see guys potentially playing 40, potentially basically 40 minutes. But when I look at the minutes, they were basically already doing that. Like Julian Reese played 37 minutes, Gillespie played 36, Rice played 36, Miguel played 37. That number could even jump up a little bit. I felt like in the first half, we played the bench a good amount. In the second half, we kind of strayed away from it a little bit. So I definitely could see that happening too for the Terps against Florida. But to me right now, I think that the big man play has been really good. I just want to see the guards play a little bit better in the 2-point arc. Obviously, Gillespie's really high-end passer right now, and if he continues to do that, we're going to be in a good spot, definitely. But I thought those are the guys that played well. And then against Grand Canyon, it was a little bit different because we blew them out. But I really like how Julian Reese played. Again, he's playing a really high level. He gets overshadowed by Queen a little bit. But right now, if we had to pick one, I mean, it's tough not to pick Queen for tournament MVP, but Julian Reese is, or for in terms of Maryland's team in the first 2 games, but Julian Reese, let's be clear, is right behind Derek Queen for playing the best in the tournament right now on this Maryland team. Like he had the best game out of anybody against Grand Canyon, which I thought is important. Obviously, we won that game by a lot more, so we didn't have to worry too much. But also, Queen played pretty well with a double-double, and he's been rebounding the ball well. I just think, to me, everyone's playing at a pretty solid level. We could use a spark off the bench to beat Florida. It's just what it is. I don't know exactly what we need, but when a team's really good and they're 6.5-point favorites against you, I think it was, which does seem a bit high. I don't think they're that much better than us, but Vegas does this stuff better than I do for sure. So it's hard to kind of doubt where their number is. But to me, you just might need something a little abnormal to win this game. You might. Like I said again, though, I don't think Maryland has to do anything too fancy. It's not like it's not like we're huge underdogs here. It feels like a similar type of talent team. Maybe Florida's a little bit more. Maybe Walter Clayton's the best player in the court right now. But Maryland's got guys too. And so I think that we might need something from our bench, or we might need somebody in the Crab 5 to like have one of their better games of the season, like a Derek Queen. But at the same time, we might not have to do anything different. Our starting lineup just might have to continue to produce in terms of nobody can just have a really poor game, but you just don't know. And I think if we play Walter Clayton the right way, in terms of you got to go over on all of his screens, I don't know what Kevin Willard's going to draw up. I think we have a pretty good shot at winning this game. It's really about stopping him. But I like where we're at. We're in the Sweet 16, and we can't complain too much. Maryland Athletics AD is gone. Kevin Willard, and what's the story behind that? We'll talk about that next. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help get your job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always walk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every orders. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. So Maryland Athletics are going to get a new AD. And so this is a really interesting story that I wanted to talk about. And it's clear Kevin Willard looks like he's the king of Maryland Athletics right now. And with how this Maryland basketball team has played, with how he constructed this team, if he's going to continue to do stuff like this for Maryland Athletics, and if we're going to have a consistent every year tournament type of basketball team, and he's going to get us on the right track in terms of our basketball program, he can do whatever he wants, to be completely honest. And I didn't talk about this too much because we were actually talking about gameplay. But I know a lot of you probably saw this, but Kevin Willard kind of making a little speech before our game against Colorado State in a press conference talking about obviously Damon Evans and our former athletic director, and kind of saying, and somebody asked him about staying at Maryland and these different things. And he's talked about kind of like, I need the right resources. I need basically it was like the NIL money, like we've been one of the lower spending teams and all these different things. And so to me, Kevin Willard obviously showed that he is kind of in charge of everything now, it feels like. And the new AD, he's going to want a guy that is ready to fully invest in this NIL stuff, which I think is fair. That's everything right now. Like if you don't have it, your program's not going to last. You might have a good year, you might have a good season, but you're not going to be able to be good over the long term. And so to me, that's also the most important thing, not only for just basketball, but football too. The NIL, more money, more money, more money, more money, more money. The more money Maryland basketball can get for the NIL and all these different things, the better we're going to be, because we're seeing it. Kevin Willard did a really good job in the portal. I don't know how much money he had to work with to get a guy like Derek Queen. You had to have something. But with all the other portal ads and everything, and to be able to keep guys, you need money. And it's going to be a really big year in the portal for Maryland basketball, because we don't have a ton of star-studded freshmen. We don't have a Derek Queen coming in that can just kind of come in right away and be the best player on the court basically every night. We don't have that. And so we're going to have to dive into the portal to get some of these high-end guys. And there's going to be a lot of them, but they go, and there's plenty of programs that people want to go to. But Willow did a really good job of getting them last year. And so we just got to hope that Maryland basketball can do that again and get the different guys that we need. But to me, Damon Evans leaving for SMU, it helps Maryland, to be honest. If the NIL stuff isn't straight and he wasn't doing great with that, then you got there's not much else you can say. Then you clearly need something a little bit better at the Big Ten level and something that can give you a little bit more. And I think Maryland's going to get that. So I do think that's important. But it seems like Kevin Willard is running the ship right now. He feels in charge. People are talking about him expecting to sign a big contract. People were talking about him with the Villanova job. I don't think that's going to happen. I'd be pretty bummed if he was out. But I really think we're in a good spot with Kevin Willard as our coach. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.